Love Lies Bleeding. That's right, folks. This is the new kind of queer noir story from director Rose Glass, who's up and coming. She's one other movie under her belt, if I'm not mistaken, and this is like a bigger budget, a bigger story for her to tackle. And it's being distributed from A24, so you know there's some weight put behind it. They're a good distribution company. I don't talk a lot about A24 as like a company, but they've made a lot of good choices. And Rose Glass, I'm always curious to see what she's going to do, because this is a place where you can really like show your talents as a filmmaker is in this genre specifically, and when you try something different within that genre, it's really exciting to see what that could be. So Love Lies Bleeding, I didn't know much about this one going into it. My initial reaction was from the first trailer that they showed. I remember it premiered, I think it was Sundance. Did it premiere at Sundance, or was there another festival it premiered at first? And the reviews were pretty positive. People were like, this is kind of interesting, it's kind of sexy. And then I was like, yeah, I love both of these leads. I want to see them do really interesting stuff. Kristen Stewart is such a fun lead. She and Pattinson have one of my favorite careers after doing like the big franchise piece, because they have both just picked very specific projects to do and made weird stuff, and I love that. And Katy O'Brien is just really interesting. And you see her pop up in a couple things, like The Mandalorian, and I think she was in Quantumania, and you're like, oh, you're gonna be like typecast as like this type of lady for like that type of production. But then she comes in and does this, and you're like, oh man, you can do no wrong. You can really just pick a project well, and this is the perfect role for you. It's awesome. This is just a really fun movie. Now, my expectations were kind of high going into this one, just because it's the type of story I want to see made. I love a good noir story. I love a modern noir story. This cast is stacked. And there was like, before I went to see the movie, the news came out about like that guy that was arrested after the film because he did stuff to himself when he was high and drunk, and he fell asleep in the cinema with his pants still down. And I'm like, oh, is it gonna be that kind of a sexy movie where I'm gonna be like, yes, we're gonna have some riveting things happen? Happy to say, it is a very sexy movie. It is gorgeously made, and the actors do some gorgeous stuff. And Kristen Stewart, in interviews too, also spoke about how, like, yeah, the things we're doing, I wanted them to feel real and not have like some fake bullshit around it. So I'm like, yes, Kristen, go off. I want to see what you're gonna do here. She did something pretty cool. I do like this movie. It has some flaws. It does kind of lose itself a bit, and I think there are specific moments where the actual story that we're building doesn't fully pay off for what it's telling. But this is just a really simple story about two people who are tragically interconnected in this bullshit they make for themselves about their love and their romance, and then how they just, through both of their experiences, past and future, mess it up because they're just terrible people making bad choices. It is just a toxic romance that's just so passionate and fiery at the beginning, and then the moment like one thing happens where you realize this love is so intense, it breaks down. And that's great. You know, like the kind of like the subtitle, or even just like the header that they've been using in the trailers, is revenge gets ripped, and that is a great example of what this movie does, because it just perfectly encapsulates a specific type of movie. We don't really make that much on a big scale anymore. We still make these kind of movies. Like, we still see revenge thrillers and big dramas like this, or even just like a noir like this, where it's kind of like a who done what to who and who's in charge here. That's cool. But on like a scale of this romance, it's really fun just to have people experiencing this, especially through like a queer lens, where you have two lead actresses who are just willing to commit to specific things that we normally haven't committed to on screen like this. This movie coming out very close to Drive Away Dolls is also really interesting, because you're like, these are very two different movies. They're kind of like doing like the same kind of like, here are like these two people that are like openly gay, and they're doing something together that's a little more like, you know, on like the crime oriented side of things. But where Drive Away Dolls is a little more like fun with its approach, this one's like, this is toxic and it's bad and everyone's broken on the inside. I love that. I also love the setting that this movie builds up. It is sometime, I believe they say is it the late 80s or early 90s? They make a Die Hard reference. And They use a lot of like synth music, so it definitely feels like we're kind of like ushering out of the 80s. If I had to guess, it's going to be around like 89, 90, or 91. That's the timeline we're in. And it's just like that kind of like dystopian Americana where we're like moving away from like the small town ideals and things are going in a different direction, but we're not fully there yet. So like everyone's just kind of like big and bulky and simple minded and deadly, and nobody's like really this like realized individual. And everyone's just kind of like in their own headspace. It's very good at like setting up that aesthetic. Seeing the town is great. The real locations are great. I really like the score, and I really like the choice of songs we use, because it is very much that like, you know, that bodybuilder, like there's this high pop intensity, funky music where everything's loud, just so many synthesizers. It's just so incredible to hear that. And it's the perfect like contrast to the aesthetic we're talking about, because it's so vibrant music. And just like we're in like a long car driving down, and it's like, you know, here's a bloody body hanging out the back of a truck or something. It's so cool to hear that. I love the colors in this too. Everything just is so sharp and distinctive, and it just knows how to play with its characters, because the world around them is a little more bright and vibrant. And then the characters themselves are really like dark and like simple, monotone on almost a couple instances. It's really cool to see that. And this does kind of talk about the world of bodybuilding a little bit, which is, it's not a world I'm unfamiliar with. I won't pretend I've ventured deep into the realms of bodybuilding, but I am familiar with the concept. I like the concept. I'm fine staring at muscular women for the length of a movie. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And I've seen some comments of people saying this is just, it's ogling this like really muscular woman for an hour and 40 minutes. And I'm just like, yeah, what do you think you signed up for? Her whole motive is, I have to get to like this convention center and like do the finals to this thing in Las Vegas, so then I can actually like be perceived as like somebody who knows what they're doing. I'm like, that is what this is about. That is just like the dynamic of their relationship. This strong, muscular person who wants to be perceived as like something they haven't been their whole lives, is like capable and confident and beautiful in this setting. And then you have Kristen Stewart's character, who's this person who is just kind of like trapped in mundanity and she can't escape. And then this literal goddess walks down to her and it's just like, hey, look at me. I'm going to fight for you and stick up for you. And they fall in love because of that. So it's just the perfect contrast of everything. I could sing the praises of Kristen Stewart till the cows come home, whatever the expression is. She's so fantastic. I love her in a role like this. It is just so confident in a way that is subtle. She's like, I don't have to be showy on screen. I can hold on words for a long time. I don't have to like yell or scream. I can if I need to, but it's just quiet and broken. And you just see she's unhappy and kind of feels stuck. She doesn't know where she wants to go. And then this vibrant creature shows up in the form of Katy O'Brien, who is gorgeous and incredible. There's just so many sequences of just this amazingly strong woman just flexing in a mirror or in front of Kristen Stewart, and I'm like, yes, that's what we're here for. That's what this audience wants. That's awesome. When she actually goes to the competition, it's great, because it's like you're seeing both sides of like somebody that is this strong and large and powerful, where you're looking at the beauty and we're seeing the defined muscle tones, and we're just like ogling in this like beautiful capacity. And then it's like, this is a noir revenge thriller. Don't forget that. Like, this woman could break your bones if she had to, and she does. It handles the like contrast between those two so freaking well, of just this, here's this literal Wonder Woman Amazonian goddess looking woman. And by the way, Katy O'Brien should be Wonder Woman. That's my new thing. She's so gorgeous. And then, I'm going to break your jaw. And I will. I'm the strongest creature in the world. We're going to have visceral scenes where you see my muscles grow. And I'm like, yes, we are. You destroy everybody. It's great. And their romance, it's believable. If only in terms of the physicality. This is like one of my main critiques of the piece, is seeing the physicality of their relationships a little more stronger than the emotional like connection of their relationship. It doesn't handle the emotional stuff as well. It's more like these two people have found somebody who looks at them with the sense of beauty that they never had before, as opposed to like a real deep connection. We kind of get that later and more towards the end, But I guess that's like the progression of a relationship. It starts with the physicality to the emotional depth, but it could have just taken more time to show you like the emotions behind it before it just launches into like it's just a murdering spree now. And that's a really interesting turn, and it goes about it pretty well. I have no problem with the way it just suddenly becomes like, all right, now it's just time to kill people and like lie to the police and everything. It's very sudden, but the characters handle it well and the actors handle it well. Great use of Dave Franco just being like the weirdest little schmarmy guy you've ever seen. It's great. Jenna Malone does pretty good too. She's not given much to do except be like the person that has to be the vulnerable one that our heroes want to get revenge for, right? And Ed Harris this is just his bread and butter. Like, this guy could just show up, be like, yeah, okay, you want me to have like the longest hair out of anybody in the movie, but I'm still bald. Okay, I'm going to eat a bug that I was like friends with. Okay, and he just does it. And you're like, yeah, of course this guy runs this small town. Who's going to oppose him? He's a literal freak, and this town's full of freaks, and he's like the king freak. And then it's just evade the police, lie to the police, hide the body, do all this stuff. And I won't spoil any of that, but it just goes into some very nice directions for a noir film, if a little on the nose, which is fine, because we're not trying to break the formula. We're just trying to play with it in a queer space that we've never really done to this effect before. And it wraps up in a very interesting bow where you're like, oh yes, there's that level of like subversive, just a more ethereal vision that we haven't seen yet. It's not bad at all. It does that pretty well. But where this movie really shines is just giving you like great music to like this more dark tone for a bodybuilder setting with a very physical and passionate relationship with two actors who have proven in this movie that they are willing to go to places that not every actor will. Because both of these people, Katy O'Brien and Kristen Stewart, have a very distinctive look to them. And when you have those two looks at the center of this type of movie, it does make it feel special. It does change the way it flows, and it makes it all the more interesting. Some of the beats, not that compelling. Some of the more emotional beats don't fully work, but I did not walk away disappointed. If a little bit taken aback by what was actually shown to me, given to what my expectations were, but it's such an interesting piece. And it's definitely one I would encourage a lot of people to watch. If you are interested in like trying to do a noir story, I think the beats here kind of play with it really well, or even just like a revenge thriller, or just you want to see a muscular woman just beat up some people. And I don't mean just like, TV muscular. I mean, like, this is like a big person, and we like exaggerate her muscles a lot in the film too. It's almost the opposite of the She-Hulk show in that setting, where, oh, look at this big lady who's having fun and being goofy. This one's like, no, look at this big lady who's broken and destroying everyone around her. And that's a thumbs up from me. So, Love Lies Bleeding. I am going to give a 7 out of 10. Now, thank you all for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.